the Virgin Queen, forever shall she reign.
Queen Elizabeth I. She was born in 1533 and died in 1603. She was the ultimate queen without a king, by Sabrina Rogerson.
Queen Elizabeth was conceived before her parents were married, and due to that fact, she was an illegitimate child and was not supposed to come into power ever. Also, her mother, Queen Anne Boleyn, was beheaded 3 short years after her marriage. By the age of 11, Queen Elizabeth was fluent in 5 different languages. Other than her native language, English, she had Greek, Latin, French, and Spanish. Her studies were mainly history and philosophy. Her favorite hobbies were horseback riding and shooting her crossbow. King Henry had 3 children. His first child was Queen Mary of England. She was born in 1516 and died in 1558. She was the second to come into power after the third child, King Edward VI of England, who was born in 1537 and died in 1553. Elizabeth was the last to come into power and was born in 1533 and died in 1603. The Catholic Queen Mary came to the throne after her half-brother, King Edward VI, died of lung infection, which was later looked over and was recorded to have symptoms of tuberculosis. Elizabeth became the Protestant sign for hope. She became the Protestant sign for hope because she was next in line to the throne and was a Protestant. Mary was Catholic and wanted to rid her country of Protestantism, and she also wanted to persuade her sister to convert. Sir Thomas Wyatt had an obsession with the Queen Mary. He was sent over the edge once he heard of her engagement to the King of Spain, which at the time was King Philip. He was determined to save the Queen from the Spaniards as well as her own advisors. He raised an army in Kent and marched on London in 1554 and later was beheaded for high treason against the crown. Thomas had sent Elizabeth a message of the plot previous to the actual event. She sent back a reply but never gave any notion to whether she was with him or against him. However, it was enough for her sister Queen Mary to suspect her sister of treason. Knowing that she was suspected of treason, Elizabeth wrote to her sister, trying to persuade her that she was never in contact with Sir Wyatt. Her attempt, however, failed. She was sent to the Tower to await further evidence and trial to come to light. Sir Wyatt was given a deal. The deal was, if he implicated Elizabeth, then he would be pardoned of his crimes. Instead of implicating her, he went to his death, and before being beheaded, he gave a gallant speech on how Elizabeth had nothing to do with his march, nor did she have any knowledge of it. In 1558, Queen Mary died, and Elizabeth was now queen. Within 48 hours of being in power, Elizabeth had already put together her new council. At the head of the council was William Cecil. He was always thinking and helping Queen Elizabeth to run the country and make sure it was the best country in Europe. Cecil was the only member of council that was allowed to contradict Elizabeth. She told him she wanted his brutal honesty, no matter what the subject may be. Without respect to my private will, you will give me counsel that you think best. William Cecil was the most trusted advisor that Queen Elizabeth ever had. By the time Queen Mary died, she had burned 300 Protestant leaders of the state. Elizabeth wanted nothing more than to correct her sister's wrongdoings and to contribute to her father's legacy. She wanted her country to become a great Protestant nation. Most of England was Catholic at the time that Elizabeth came to the throne. Her solution was simple: to give the Protestants a common book of common prayer written in English rather than Latin, but she would keep up with the Catholic tradition of ceremony. Like her father, she made herself head of the church and was not to be ignored. Now that Elizabeth was queen, she needed a husband. She always dressed to dazzle and mesmerize those who gazed upon her, yet there was always a subtlety to her wardrobes. However, she never married. Robert Cecil described her as more than a man, yet less than a woman. More than a man, yet less than a woman. That was a phrase used by Robert Cecil, her second advisor after his father William Cecil. There was a rumor that Elizabeth had some sort of abnormal, impenetrable membrane, which would make her incapable of intercourse or conceiving a child. Whether that is true or not, nobody knows for certain. Elizabeth's first love was her childhood friend Robert Dudley, whom she made her master of horses. However, he was distrusted at court by her council members as well as those who attended her court. There were rumors that suggested he was at work in his own wife's murder. There were rumors from London to Paris of the two and their affair. William Cecil thought it was time that he kept his promise to Elizabeth. He told her that if she married Robert Dudley, he would step down in his position as her advisor. However, his counsel was not needed at the time. Elizabeth had promised Robert that she would never marry. The second man that Elizabeth ever loved was the Duke of Anjou. The council had chosen the Duke for Elizabeth as diplomatic flirtation. Whether or not it led to marriage, they didn't know. Some were for it and some were against it. When the Duke came in person to woo the Queen, she was smitten with him. Elizabeth became reckless with the rose-colored glasses that she was wearing. She seemed to have been pledging herself to him in a public way that was not taken very kindly by the people. After listening to her ladies-in-waiting rage one night, she came to her senses and sent her suitor home the next day. The Duke of Anjou was a diplomatic figure for France. He came to England for both pleasure and business. However, the people of England did not want their queen to marry him, so when she decided that she was going to do what's best for her people, she sent him home. Even though Elizabeth was now queen, her virginity seemed to be her way to ensure her own power remained. She still had a threat, though. Her cousin, Queen Mary of Scots, fled to England after her husband was killed and she was implicated. Mary was Catholic and had a claim to the English throne as well. The English Catholics used her as a rally point against the Queen. Most Catholic priests were irritated that Elizabeth wanted her country to become Protestant, and they acted on the rage against Elizabeth. Sir Francis Walsingham was Elizabeth's chief of intelligence, and he was determined to stop any Catholic from harming his queen. In the end, he had 22 Catholic priests burned at the stake for aiding a campaign against Queen Elizabeth.
Hey, this is Sabrina Rogerson signing off on my Queen Elizabeth I video. Thanks for watching and I hope y'all liked it.